Now, two headlines, two different months, in fact, only a month apart from The Guardian. Why not put the music at the heart of education, writes Stephen Moss, about how every child should have the opportunity to learn to read music and to play an instrument. And then a month later, music in schools will soon be extinct and the government is clueless. In fact, there's been lots of talk about children and music lessons. The Royal Albert Hall this week released new research about the inaccessible price of music lessons for children. 7 in 10 parents feel the cost of music lessons for their children is a deterrent, despite most, 85%, believing that access to lessons enhances their education. Essentially, lack of financial support is the main issue. Only 5% feel that there is enough funding to ensure children with an interest in music have the opportunity to do so. So, several things here. Is it important for children to have an upbringing and a curriculum in music? What benefits will it have? And then if they want to take it further, just how do they do it in these more frugal financial times? Well, joining me in the studio is Andy Bestwick. Andy is from the Leicester Symphony Orchestra. And welcome to the show, Andy. Good to talk to you.
Thank you very much, Jonathan.
You're the main man now at the Leicester Symphony Orchestra. How long have you been there?
As a player for 3.5 years, but as chairman now for a year.
And in that time, have you noticed all these stories around as well? Because you were a former teacher, not a music teacher, but you were a former teacher, weren't you?
Correct.
Have you noticed that there's a lot of talk about kids and music in schools?
Yes, indeed, and it's a growing tide of comment and experience from schools, and my school teacher friends that are still teaching are tearing their hair out at what is going on. Because
what is going on?
The government is pushing more and more the academic subjects, the baccalaureate and such like, and the arts subjects are being squeezed further and further. My view is that we're taking away quite a lot of what is the British academic and British forte of our creativity and musical ability. Numbers have dropped significantly in all areas of music performance, and particularly at school level, with primary schools supplying their academic music curriculum as a mandatory bit of work. As children go through to middle school or upper school now, then they are getting squeezed further and further, and it's becoming less and less involved.
In my day, we had a recorder, and I think we were probably given recorders actually at that point. There probably was a bit of money sloshing around to buy, whatever it was, 30 cheap recorders. Does that kind of thing happen any longer?
It does in some schools.
Private schools? Grammar schools?
Yes, but in mainstream as well.
Okay.
But yet again, for music to be supported in primary schools, a teacher has to be prepared to argue for the case that they want, say, the Leicestershire Schools Music Service to come in at a cost of £1,200 a year to the school. So although the children are receiving the musical experience at school free, it's costing the school, and more that's getting squeezed and becoming harder for the teacher to argue for, simply because the powers that be are being measured on what else they are being. Yes.
So. Just to recap this and pull it together, there is a lack of music in a child's education, primarily because cuts are being made, you say, by the government or the education sector, because they want to push students into more academic subjects rather than more what they may class as vocational. I don't think it is. It's not vocational, but you know what I mean. And then there's not the money, and then there's not the money to buy the instruments. And when cash-strapped schools are asking parents at the gate to dig in their pockets and help them out, they're not going to have a big old grand piano in the background, are they? So all of these things going on. What, therefore, is the possible benefit of giving children music lessons and actually restoring that funding, or indeed not just restoring it but increasing it?
Okay, having worked most of my teaching career actually in mainstream special needs teaching, I attended many courses and saw the benefit to a lot of young people of being involved in music that stimulates the brain in quite different ways to standard academic English and maths and science rigour. It does give the brain a complete workout in all sorts of ways, and so the benefit to a young person of getting involved in a musical hobby to start with, a musical pastime, is that they will learn self-reliance. They learn a new language. Music is a language, even though the outcome is an art form. They learn a lot of self-motivation and certainly the ability to concentrate for longer than the requisite 3 minutes it takes for people to either listen to their favourite track or click on the next Google search on the internet because they're bored with what they've done. So It is a massively important part of brain sort of development if young people can get into it.
But if we're talking about music in its entirety, are these children that we're talking about the children that'll be out they're out on the holidays at the minute? Mm-hmm. But are they interested in the history of music, or is it like, learning about Beethoven and Mozart and how we ended up to where we are today, or do they simply just want to grab something, play on it, blow into it, whatever, just to create a sound?
Well, I think certainly initially, yes. All of us, myself included, as you were, picked up a recorder first and liked making a noise out of it. And I think most young children will enjoy that massively.
So the practicals works better than the theory?
Yes, indeed.
Right.
But those then that go on to develop their skills and their knowledge will see the benefit of learning a little bit about both as they move forward. Yeah. If I use, I don't know, Emerson, Lake and Palmer or Elton John, yes. Those people that have had mainstream musicians that have had a classical background at some point in their lives, produced fantastic music, and I would hesitate to anybody. I would deny anybody the opinion that their music wasn't enhanced by that little bit of classical background.
Do you think children have a vision of becoming a successful musician, or do you think that they are so wrapped up in YouTube videos, Spotify, Ed Sheeran? The boys want to be Ed Sheeran, the girls want to be in Little Mix. Has the commercialisation of music basically led these kids only to be interested if they were going to be number one in the charts and live an expensive lifestyle? Do you think that they actually want to, have the less glamorous, or less, not glamorous, but the less well-paid life of a session musician, for example?
There will be some that the lure of the bright lights and fame of more popular mainstream music is a greater pull. And I think the demise of some of the courses in music being offered, the BTEC music, for instance, which allowed students to choose modules that were more suited to current music recording and the business of music as it is today, as opposed to studying the history of music, composers, and those things that go with it. There will be some, but without doubt, as the latest winner of the BBC Young Musician of the Year, Sheku from Nottingham, has proved, and it only takes a young person with a little bit of charisma to actually generate an awful lot of media and younger person's interest.
I ask about that and the Ed Sheeran and the Little Mix because sometimes the commercial music might seem for a young person as more accessible, and traditional music, whether it's a trumpet, oboe, piano, violin, harp, whatever it is, seems a little bit elitist. And that's interesting in this Royal Albert Hall research, which said that basically 70% of parents feel that the cost of music lessons for their children is a deterrent, despite 85% of them believing that actually it would make their children a better person. So is it elitist?
No, but it's down to the parents being having the drive themselves to support that child.
But are the lessons too expensive though? Because even if you don't have a very good earning, but you know that your son could be a wonderful guitar player in the future, and you make those sacrifices in your own lifestyle to fund that,
yes.
Are they still too expensive, do you think?
Potentially, yes, they can be, without a doubt. And so here in Leicestershire, we're quite lucky. There's something like 7 orchestras in Leicester and Leicestershire.
I know. Yes, I know. And how they all work, I have no idea. I get confused.
Well, there are actually quite a number of players that actually hot seat between one and the other.
You see.
But it doesn't mean that they're not performing to their best. There are in Leicestershire also a number of very good, well supported amateur organisations, brass bands, scout and guide bands, that are providing tuition, as well as 1 or 2 community groups, Woodgate Music, Magna Music, that are providing musical experience and tuition for young people at a very reasonable cost.
Just mention those 2 again. What were they?
Woodgate Music,
yeah,
and Magna Music, based down in Wigston.
Yes. All right, I'll make a note of those. But best thing is to look out, and there are these things, there are all these organisations.
Indeed, there are.
Andy, nice to talk to you. Thanks for putting some, meat on the bones of that argument, because it is interesting, and hopefully, I never went on to become, a concert pianist, but I enjoyed it, and I do think actually for the time that I was learning piano, it made me a better person. Do you still remember the name of your old music teacher, by the way?
Yes, indeed.
Why is it we can always remember the name of our old music teacher?
Yeah.
What was their name?
Well, primary school, Mr. Harrop.
Harrop.
Yes, and then at Garrington High School in Loughborough, Mr. Bilton. And then at Burley
you
College.
You went through them, didn't you?
Burley College, that is now Charwood College in Loughborough, Roger Munns. Yes.
Oh, wow, you remember
yes,
them. My music teacher was called Mrs. Darwell Smith, and she looked exactly what the name suggests. She was very well turned out. She was quite plump. She used to have glasses on a chain. She was hysterical. She was really good fun.